It is 8 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. It's 6 a.m. at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Hello, I'm Monita Rajpal. You're watching World One live from London. It is a scandal that has shaken Rupert Murdoch's empire to its foundations, and now the British government is feeling the aftershocks. Several media reports say the Prime Minister's former communications director is being arrested this Friday as part of the investigation into what went on at the News of the World. Andy Coulson is expected to be formally questioned and then released. He was the paper's editor, but resigned in 2007 when phone hacking by one of his reporters came to light. Coulson has always said he didn't know it was going on. The Sunday tabloid is one of the oldest and most read papers in Britain, but this weekend's edition will be the last. News International is closing it down. Dan Rivers has been following this story. He joins us now from outside the headquarters of News International in London. Dan.
Well, I think there has been a shift in the last couple of hours in this story at Monita. This has gone from being a massive story about the closure of this paper behind me.
Interesting to see how a $15 billion deal can make the bosses wake up and see what's going on. All right, Dan Rivers there, thank you so much for that. Let's see what newspapers here are saying about this. In Britain, The Guardian's paper headline has, "A newspaper is gone, but an inquiry is as urgent as ever." It says the closure of the News of the World must not end the debate over the ethical limits of tabloid journalism. This dramatic gesture should be a signal to begin it in earnest. Now, also in Britain, we've got the Independent paper and the headline here, "Forget the principle. This is all part of the Murdoch master plan." The op-ed piece says Rupert Murdoch may have killed off the News of the World, but that famous newspaper may not be the last casualty in one of the saddest episodes in British newspaper history. And finally, a headline in the Wall Street Journal newspaper, a paper owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, says News Corp closes tabloid in phone hacking scandal. The paper says closing the paper by no means will shut down the scandal that has engulfed News Corp's UK newspaper operations. The company still faces a thicket of criminal investigations, civil lawsuits, and new government probes that could take years to run their course. One issue, many views. You can read all those articles in full at facebook.com/W1CNN. We want to take you now to another story that is also developing here on CNN and around the world. On Saturday, the world will welcome a new country. Sudan is splitting in two, creating a new nation called South Sudan. It will be the 196th country, independent country in the world. It will also be Africa's 55th country, as well as having a new map. It has a new national anthem and a new flag. And that's what this flag in South Sudan will, well, hopefully it'll come up. It will look like, as it has its own national anthem as well. Sudan to the north. Sudan to the north will be there, of course, the capital Khartoum, and of course South Sudan with the capital Juba. Now, this is what to the north, but it will still lose 8 million people. That's what Sudan in the north will what will affect that country, and that's a quarter of its land mass. And it will no longer share borders with Uganda, Kenya, or Congo, as we see there. Now, Sudan will also cease to be Africa's largest country by area, and that title goes to Algeria. Now, the split follows a referendum in January when people in the South voted for independence, and that vote was part of a deal in 2005 to end conflict between the two sides. Now, both sides are hoping the move will finally bring peace after 2 decades of bloody conflict. Now, Sudan's ambassador to London, Abdullah Al-Razreg, joins us now here in our studio. Sir, thank you very much for being with us. What does it mean for Sudan to have a new neighbor now, South Sudan, a neighbor that has been, well, I guess a country that has come out of rife, but now independence for many?
It means good news because it means an end of a conflict that was raging for years.
Peace really won. If that was the case, and if you're happy that they have won independence, why are there then troops amassed along the border, along the north border, and there are still reports of violence?
There are no troops amassed along the border.
Certain satellite images have actually shown images of troops along the border.
No, the troops are in one area called Abyei. Okay.
Assuring the South Sudanese people that there will be no violence, that there will be peace, even along the border, that could affect them.
It is not, in the benefit of anybody
Of the President Bashir's attendance in these celebrations, there are many who are saying that it is actually quite controversial that he will be part of the celebrations. What do you say to that?
Why is it controversial?
I don't know. There are those in the north that are saying that it's controversial.
No, I know if not for the President of the Sudan, President Bashir, the referendum would not take place. If not for him,
sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, CNN's Nima Al-Bagir is in the southern capital of Juba. She joins us now live with impressions after spending the last week in Sudan. Nima, what are you seeing?
Well, there is still no end in sight to the displacement that's continuing from the continued standoff on that north-south border, that disputed border.
Just a few hours' time and weather permitting, the space shuttle will blast off into space and into history. John Curry was a flight director at NASA's Mission Control and has spent much of his life to guiding the shuttle through the heavens. Meteorologist Jennifer Delgado is monitoring the weather in Florida, which could still affect the space shuttle launch. Jen, they're saying 30% favorable. The odds are not good.
Not good. And Monita, I can tell you're a glass half full type of girl. But 70%, we don't have a chance to get that space shuttle.
Yeah, I thought walking in my heels in the rain was tough enough.
Right.
That's probably worse.
God, I try walking in flip-flops. You fly everywhere, don't you? Deadly.
That's true. Jen, thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for that. This is World One, live from London. A major scientific breakthrough has not only saved the life of a man. Welcome back. You're watching World One. Here are some of the stories that we're talking about. Now, if you're a fan of visual art, you'd probably rather like to own a Picasso. But not many people would take things as far as the man in this video. He walked into a San Francisco gallery and minutes later was captured on camera calmly walking out with a Picasso painting worth $200,000. 24 hours later, the San Francisco police arrested a suspect, but there's no sign of the painting. It's now hardly surprising that the gallery owner is now saying he'll beef up security. You think? Now, it's a big problem that's getting bigger. 2/3 of adults in the U.S. and about 1/3 of children and teenagers are overweight. That's according to a recent study. The report found obesity rates grew fastest in Alabama, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. The researchers say people on low incomes aren't getting enough fresh fruit and vegetables, and that the portions they eat are just too big. And a huge advance in medical science has been made here in London. A patient who could have died of throat cancer has received a synthetic windpipe created in a lab using his own stem cells and without a human donor tissue. The patient is now well and, get this, can actually speak. You're watching World One. News International has announced that it will shut down the paper. Well, News of the World says its sacked workers, its staff can apply for jobs elsewhere in the corporation, but that's done little to ease their anger.
There's nobody in the News of the World who's done anything wrong.
For more on the phone hacking scandal, we're joined by one of its victims, a PR guru, Max Clifford. Max, thank you very much for being with us. You were a victim of phone hacking, and what do you think about the News of the World actually shutting down its operations when we're just hearing there that majority of those journalists who were working there had nothing to do with it?
No, it's sad. I mean, the News of the World is a British institution. You know, it's like eggs and bacon in the morning for your breakfast on a Sunday. It's been the biggest selling, the most successful newspaper in Britain for donkey's years.
You know, so, from a PR perspective, you're an expert in public relations and branding. Does this really change? I guess shutting down a British institution, that doesn't fix the problem. That doesn't remove the cancer. It's probably something that is inherent within News Corp's ethics, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this will work, particularly as I believe there's going to be a new Sunday Sun.
But see, this is the thing, that this is what people find very difficult to grasp. If these are just allegations, why shut down a British institution, leaving some 200 people without jobs, and not actually put the people who were at the helm of that newspaper up for question?
Well, you're basically telling me what I've been telling everybody for the last few years should have been going on, but it did.
Questions we continue to be asked. Ms. Max Clifford, thank you very much for that. Well, after this Sunday, for the first time, as we've been reporting in 168 years, there will be no News of the World. A paper that thrived on selling scandal is now the victim of scandal of its own creation. Richard Quest looks back.
It was in 1843 that the first news of the world...
Thousands of protesters are gathering Cairo's Tahrir Square in what they're describing as a bid to save the revolution. They are angry with the slow pace of reforms and want Egypt's interim government to make swift changes. This is a live shot of the rally right now, and traffic through Tahrir Square has already been halted. That's also where we find Fred Pleitgen. He joins us now with the latest on what's actually happening there. Fred?
Hi, Monita. Yeah, it's been going on since the very early morning hours this morning.
The one's oldest race starts today with the opening practice session for the British Grand Prix, and Alex Thompson's here with a look at that and some of the other stories that are making headlines in your world.
Yes, Monita. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone effectively launched the Formula One World Championship.
Britain's no stranger to bad weather, stormy weather, I should say. But we're not talking about the actual physical weather, are we? We're talking about emotional weather.
No, that's true. Ricky Hatton, the boxes, had a bit of a turbulent time, really, over the last 2 years.
All right, thank you very much for that, Alex. You're watching World One live from London. When we come back, a relaxed couple get into the cowboy spirit. Welcome back. This is World One live from London. We are coming up on 7 a.m. in New York, 1 p.m. in Berlin, and 8 p.m. in Tokyo. It's fueled up, it's ready, and it's waiting. The shuttle Atlantis is set to lift off just hours from now, bringing to an end a 30-year space adventure. Now, the launch team is keeping a very close eye on the weather. Forecasters say there's only a 30% chance that conditions will actually be favorable. Now, the countdown continues in the United States as Britain's glamorous royal couple say goodbye to Canada before heading off to California. On their first official overseas tour as a married couple, Prince William and Catherine have visited 4 Canadian provinces and 1 territory. One of this is just to give you an idea of the map of their route. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. 300,000 people turned out in Ottawa to see the couple during Canada Day celebrations there on July 1st. The cream dress she actually wore for her engagement photos taken by Mario Testino. Now, on Saturday, the royals took turns with the shovel for a tree planting ceremony at Government House. It was near where Prince Charles and Princess Diana planted one on William's first birthday. Then the next stop was the French-speaking province of Quebec. Now, this is more of the controversial part of the trip, where there were anti-monarchy protesters to greet them in Montreal. Then on Monday, it was for a little royal rivalry, going head-to-head in a dragon boat race there on Prince Edward Island, both showing off their skills. Then Catherine watched as William showed off his piloting skills. He performed a water-birding maneuver, landing a Sea King helicopter on a lake and then skimming the surfaces. Very difficult to do, so he was actually pretty good at doing that. And they got stuck into street hockey and Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. The Duke had to go, but the Duchess wasn't obviously dressed for it there. Still looking very beautiful, though. Then they couldn't go past these white cowboy hats at a rodeo in Alberta province. Prince William and Catherine were there for the start of the Calgary Stampede, looking very beautiful and handsome, I should say. But the royal tour doesn't end there. They'll spend 3 days in California, where they'll hit the red carpet and take part in a charity polo match. Well, let's take a look at what's trending on social media right now before we leave you here on World One. At number 3, the biggest jackpot in Europe. Whoever wins Friday's Euro Millions lottery draw will be $264 million richer. The record prize pot has got lots of people talking online and daydreaming. Of course, everyone wants to think they're going to win. You can forget it because it's going to be me. Well, at number 2, the final countdown. Atlantis is preparing for its last takeoff, and as the countdown continues, interest is growing online. Shuttle launch is one of the most popular search terms on Google. Atlantis is due to lift off at 11:26 a.m. That's East Coast time in the U.S. That's about 4.5 hours from now. And at number 1, News of the World, the tabloid paper has been the talk of the social media since news broke that it's shutting down. Some people say it's a harsh decision for the innocent journalists who work there, but there are others who feel it was appropriate considering the nature of the scandal. You are watching World One live from London. I'm Monita Rajpal. Thanks for joining us. We want to leave you with a final look at Atlantis. Everyone will be crossing their fingers that the launch goes ahead on schedule. Stay with us here on CNN.